Hello there and welcome to another Kerbal Space Program video. Today I am recreating a rocket that never was ever built. This is the Saturn C-8. You see right here I have it on the launch pad, kind of just sitting, kind of just looking over it, all of its beautifulness. And you see we have an abort tower on it, so we're just kind of testing that out right now. So you see I just fired it, and you can see that if we did ever need to abort, which you don't need to do in stock KSP, we very well could. Except we kind of have to get the tower off somehow, which I just did by rotating my craft a little. And there we go. We get a nice soft landing. Wait, what? What happened? And why did my entire rocket just wiggle out and explode? Maybe that's what they mean when they say that 4x time warp can cause stability issues with the bigger rockets. And this thing is a pretty big rocket, so I have the Making History DLC, so I'm using the big ol' new 5-meter parts and all that stuff, and the new Mastodon engines. And also I'm doing it at the brand new launch site, the Desert or Desert Airfield, depending on how you want to read it. And yeah, I'm just kind of looking over the rocket again. This thing is pretty good. The new parts look absolutely amazing. And the thing is, they're just so big. It's hard to make something that like looks accurate, but isn't, but has so much delta V. So you'll actually see I'm either in this video I'm going to be dropping quite a few stages early, and then right when I start re-entering, I'm going to have a good probably 1,500 meters of delta V left in my service module. And it's not really a service module. It's pretty much just an engine, a couple fuel tanks, and landing legs, and science experiments. And that's what really separates this. You see, the Saturn C-8 was meant to be used for direct ascent missions, which is different than what was actually used. Direct ascent missions require quite a bit larger payload capacity, which is why this is quite a bit larger of a rocket. You'll also see down in the corner the liquid fuel bars. Even when I start off, they're around half full. That's just because I had to empty out some of the, either completely or partially empty out most of the tanks for this video, just because otherwise I'd have around 10,000 meters per second in delta V. And also the thrust to weight ratios is way low if you have it where they're not partially emptied. So you see, even with, I have so much extra delta V that I'm probably doing an extremely inefficient ascent. And what I'm trying to do is get us to around a 200 kilometer by 200 kilometer orbit, and our second stage, which is powered by 8 J2 engines, or I2 engines in Kerbal Space Program's case, are used. So the second stage will get us most of the way into orbit. I'm going to drop it with our periaps just barely in the atmosphere so I can minimize the space junk. That's one of the things I learned when I was testing this out. And you see I'm kind of just speeding through all of this ascent and launch. That's not really anything special. I mean, you pretty much get into orbit with every rocket you launch in KSP. But it's not every day that you launch with this big of a rocket and have these explosive separations. So we're just using our third stage, which is actually the same as the one that was supposed to be used on the Saturn V. So this is the only stage of the Saturn C-8 that actually flew. And yeah, I just like it. I like the third stage. And since we launched from the Desert Airfield, which is around 5 degrees more south than the normal launch pad, we kind of had to tweak our trajectory to get and intersect with the moon. And we don't even really have to do it to get on an intersect, just to get on one that, where our periaps isn't 1,000 kilometers high. And the path that I end up taking, I'm going very fast when I enter the moon's sphere of influence, and that means I have to do a rather large orbit burn. I think I end up needing around 1,000 meters per second for my orbit insertion burn. But like I said, this thing's massively overbuilt. You could probably, with the fuel tanks completely full, you could probably go to Duna and back easily with this. I'd probably even have delta V to spare. So you see we're just doing our translunar injection. and I'm just opening up that service bay because that's where I have all my experiments. I don't really need to worry about those experiments since this is a sandbox save, but I did take a surface. I did analyze the surface with that little thing I have in there just so I can maybe build a base there, but I probably won't because the place where I land isn't probably the best for a base, but you never know. So yeah, you see how I'm going pretty fast when I enter the moon sphere of influence. You see I'm going a kilometer a second right now. Normally when you're doing it, you're going around. When I do it from like just the normal launch pad, I'm going around 600 meters per second or so. And you see, it's going to take a little while for me to get into orbit. It probably doesn't help that this thing doesn't have the highest thrust to weight ratio. But when you're in space, it doesn't really matter. And you see the orbit that we actually get on is mostly polar. And what I'm going to do is just go straight down, not even go into orbit really. I'm just going to go straight down. I'm going to burn anti-normal so I make sure I land on the light side of the moon just so you can actually see what I'm doing. And yeah, you see that's just going to use all of the fuel in our third and kind of final stage. This service module / landing stage is using what the Kerbal version of the AJ-10 is. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. And actually in real life, that's what they used on all of the Apollo service modules. So everything from the ones that went by the moon went to Skylab and back. The reason the engine, most people, when they're doing stuff like that, will have it be massively overpowered for what they're doing. But that's actually because the AJ-10 engine was designed for a direct descent moon mission. So it had that higher thrust because when you're doing direct descent, you have to carry all of the fuel when you land that you need to get back, which is the reason that the payload's heavier and the reason you need a bigger rocket. So the thrust on this isn't too bad. It has good gimbaling, but I do have those RCS thrusters just so I can look around and get nice views of the moon. Yeah, I just like the new cockpits. They have a lot better windows, so you can I'll be looking at the moon the whole time when I'm flying, or like if I'm not recording. So it's just so nice to be able to look at it. And there was an issue with my graphics, like I didn't have it set on full. So when I turned the graphics settings up, it looks so much nicer. So that's the real reason why I was kind of looking through the cockpit more than I normally do. And you see we're actually going up. I burned a little too much. I wasn't planning on doing any sort of like suicide burn. It's just that I wanted to slow down and I wasn't really paying attention. And I don't know what I was doing. So we're just coming down here. For our like final descent, we're gonna almost do a suicide burn, but I started around 200 meters early because altitude is a measurement of time. And you see we're around 50 meters above the land, and there we go. We are touched down on the moon. One of the things that I did was put a docking port on it and also went up even though I was landed. And the reason I did a docking port on this is because I'm pretty sure that the thing used for this would be a normal Apollo command service module, and the normal Apollo command service module had a docking port on it. I think they might have just stretched the tanks, maybe. Oh yeah, and I'm just speeding up. I'm doing flags and footsteps and taking a nice little screenshot for the thumbnail. So while I was doing that, I wanted to talk about something. So I record, my main monitor is 1440p, and back before when I didn't really edit much, my videos were in 1440p because I just uploaded raw footage. And now that I edit more, I use DaVinci Resolve, and the exporting isn't as like fine as like something like Premiere Pro is. So you basically get to choose the main resolutions, and 1440p isn't really a main resolution. So the two choices I get are upscale to 4K or downscale to 1080p. I was just wondering what you would think would be the best idea. If you want to, leave it down in the comments below. I think for now I'm going to upscale to 4K just because I like that more than 1080p, just because you get that little 4K badge and it makes me feel special. Alright, back to the mission. So we did flags. I mainly sped this up because most of it was me getting a screenshot. I think I ended up taking like 15 screenshots just because there's nothing like in the game that says like screenshot taken. You're probably wondering, I don't have this on Steam, so I can't just press F12. There's a dedicated button for it. Oh yeah, and I decided maybe to open up the resource tab. I didn't cheat. You saw the fuel levels go down. You can trust me if you want. If I remember to upload the craft file in the description, just because. Oh yeah, and you see right there, that's when I performed the resource analysis. And you can also see that that's where I have the monopropellant for my RCS system, just in there, because I don't really need that much, because you can either really use your engine gimbal or your control wheel in the command pod to do that. And you see we're just taking off. That's one of the things I don't really like about Kerbal Space Program, is just that, like, you landed on the surface, you planted your flag, you took your picture, you maybe did some science if you're playing career mode. There's not really much to do. I mean, rovers are too bad to actually enjoy using. Maybe I could try and do this again with a rover. I have more than enough Delta V to do it. But I don't know. Rovers in this game are so bad. Surface bases in this game are pretty much useless. And you see, I'm putting myself in a really low lunar orbit just so I can look at it while I do that. Because like I said, it's probably one of my favorite parts of the game. And you see, I'm kind of just... I'm trying to focus, trying to make it so like the Kerbal's looking outside his window and seeing the flag, even though he can't really see the flag, because I think I looked at it and we're around 62 kilometers away, it said, I think. I don't know, but I do the new command pod, everything's awesome. It's just so much better than the old one. Now I'm just trying to get my burn to land on Kerbin. Unfortunately, I will be doing this. I will be landing on the dark side. I know that ahead of time because I'm doing a post commentary on this. I just think it's the best way to do slower paced games like this. And you see, I'm getting my periaps right around 30 kilometers. And now, once again, I'm just looking at the moon. And you can see I'm left with little under 1,400 meters per second. So I could probably fly to Minmus and land with that amount of fuel. I don't know if I could return, but like I said, I could just fill up the tanks more on the earlier stages. Even the first stage, I emptied a little bit of fuel out of. And now you can see me just detaching the service module and turning the lights off since it's going to be pretty dark, and starting to re-enter. So I'm spinning because I can. I don't know. I do a lot of things in this game because I can. Like, the reason I was so inefficient for that flight was because I could. I don't know. So Jeb, Bill, and Bob successfully landed on the moon doing a direct ascent and using a real rocket. So there's another way that was actually planned on being used for So what was actually used for the moon landings was, at least the American moon landings, was called Lunar Orbit Rendezvous. There was two other options: direct ascent, which is what I did here, and Earth Orbit Rendezvous, which is where a slightly smaller rocket, probably in between the Saturn 1 and the Saturn 5, would bring up the command module and then the lunar module, and then they would join together around orbit around Earth, and then they'd head to the moon. I don't know if I want to do this in Kerbal Space Program or not. I'll probably see how this video does. So if you really want to see that, you could consider liking or commenting that you want to see that. And yeah, this mission's getting wrapped up. I mean, the mission actually ended probably right around 2 days. So it was right around a 2-day mission, which is pretty good actually. That was a quick mission. And you see, I did leave one piece of space junk in orbit. I think that was the second stage. So it probably will eventually come down. It'll probably take a little more than 2 days. And you see, yeah, we're only 150 meters above the ground. So that means that this mission is almost over, which means that this video is almost over. So thank you very much for watching. This has been TNT Productions, and I hope to see you in the next video, whatever that is. Oh, yep, there we are. We've landed. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. TNT Productions. Later. Bye.